Let's go over how to fix numbness in your hands when you're on the bike. This can be split into two big categories, whether your saddle position or your hood position, where your handles are. Now, there's also two different kinds of numbness you can experience in your hands. One being called ulnar neuropathy, which is where you're going to feel the numbness in the last two fingers, or carpal tunnel syndrome, which is going to be either the first three fingers or the entire hand. Both of these things can come from poor saddle position or poor hood position on your bike, where you're reaching too far or you're just putting too much weight on your hands. So let's go over how to fix those. The first thing we'll go over is saddle height. You want to make sure this is the right height for you, because if it's too high, you'll end up falling forward to take pressure off of your perineum, your groin, and putting that pressure on your hands. So in this video, I'm showing you how to do that, where you're basically taking the knee angle at the bottom position of the crank and finding what that is, using a tool called a goniometer. Now, you want this angle to be between 25 to 35 degrees. If it's higher than that, if it's more degrees, you need to raise the saddle height. If it's lower than that, chances are you need to lower the saddle height. So if it's below 25 degrees, you want the saddle height lower. Higher than 35, you want it higher. The next step in fixing your fit is the saddle fore and after, how far forward and backwards the seat is. What you're going to want is something called a plumb bob, which you'll see here, as well as knowing where the pedal spindle is or where the pedal juts out from the crank. So once you get that, you're going to place the plumb bob over the center of the person's knee who's on the bike, where the foot is in the forwardmost position, or you can think of like a 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock position on the crank, and then seeing where that lands versus the pedal spindle. So I'm going to use this tool to measure how many centimeters it is away from the plumb bob versus the pedal spindle. On a road bike, I'm looking for about 2 centimeters. For a tri-bike, that can go up to 5 centimeters, just because of the difference of the geometry of the bike. The last thing we'll look at for saddle is the amount of tilt. Typically, you actually want about -2 degrees of tilt on the saddle just to relieve pressure from your groin. But if you end up with too much tilt, that can lead to you falling forward and, again, putting too much weight on your hands, just like having the saddle height too high. So what you want, find about 2 degrees, use a level, either that you downloaded on your phone or an actual level, but place it on a very flat surface for the seat so you actually have something that's not skewing the results. So after you found that, get it to about 2 degrees using the Allen wrench, and then see how you're feeling with that. Now, if you fix your saddle position and you're still feeling that numbness in your hands, the next thing to look at is the hood position and the stem height of your bike. Stem height can be fixed by basically placing more spacers on the stem to make it taller, therefore requiring you to reach less far forward, fixing that to whatever you need. If that fixes your problem, great. If not, you can look at your hood position. What angle your hood on the bike, your handles are tilted on the bike. Now, typically you want this to be pretty flush, about 90 degrees, but if it's tilted too far up, that can cause the last 2 fingers in your hand to go numb, that ulnar neuropathy that we were talking about. Versus the other way, if it's tilted too far down, it can cause that carpal tunnel syndrome because it's placing too much pressure on the opposite end of your hand. So fix that about 90 degrees with the base bars, and it's okay for the actual handles to be slightly tilted up, but you do not want to exaggerate that too much. And this is how Jenny looks post-fit. You can see that her reach is much more relaxed and she is not experiencing any numbness or tingling in her hands. Therefore, problem fixed with the hands on the bike.